Fantasy Baseball on deck, everybody. This is Austin as usual, and we had a special episode today. Specifically, there is a subscriber that contacted me and said that he wanted his team kind of reviewed. He's currently 2-4. What can he do in the now and/or building towards the future to better his team given his current situation? So we're going to kind of evaluate what he has going on for him and move on from there. So. Trade analysis specifically, what you always want to do is you specifically want to get on a desktop computer. This is very important because you're able to see more. You're able to digest more data in a more condensed time because we all have full-time jobs, or we go to school, or there's all of these distracting factors that's pulling us away from this thing that we like, that's fantasy baseball. So we only have so much limited time, might as well make the most of it. So what you want to do is go to your league page. When you open this up in a desktop, it's going to look like this. You want to go over to your league tab. You want to go down to rosters, and rosters is going to show you not only your roster, but it's going to show you everyone else's roster, and it's going to divvy it up by points scored. So, at the front of the list, I'm number one here because I've scored the most points and also undefeated. But as you scroll down, the teams get lesser and lesser from a point scored perspective. So anyways, this is my league. This isn't Zach's league, which is the person, we're going to, break down today. But we will do that now. But that's important. Basically, you want to get your roster over here, kind of decide like where you have too much, what resources do you have excess of, and where are you really, really slim. So this is kind of how you would evaluate kind of where you stand. You're looking at your roster here and then kind of looking at these rosters in your league to see kind of like, do I have extra second baseman, which is the case with Zack, who doesn't have really any second baseman. That's kind of like where we're going to go with this sort of thing. So, as we transition over, let's first look at Zach's roster before we transition. So Zach's roster comprises of it. If you guys can't see this super close, I'll just run through it really quick. J2 Romano, Freddie Freeman, Jose Altuve, Nolan Arenado, Marcus Simeon, Ozzie Albies, Matt Olson, Cedric Mullins, Whit Merrifield, Julio Rodriguez, Alec Thomas, JD Martinez, Juan Yepes, Carlos Rodon, Trevor Rogers, Justin Verlander, Kenley Jansen, Spencer Strider, Joe Barlow, Sean Manaea, Nick Pavita, Gregory Soto, Aroldis Chapman, Brandon Lowe, Garrett Cole, Eduardo Rodriguez, Freddie Peralta, Lance Lynn, and to round it out, Fernando Tatis, who are on the IL. So this is his roster, and this is how we're gonna, where we're gonna start. So his roster, who we're evaluating again, is on this right tab over here. So if we go back over to this tab, this is where I think action items and more attention is going to be called towards animals running all over the place. Attention probably brought more towards these players on this screen. So what we want to focus on here is where I think there's value to gain and where I think it's not time to sell yet, especially because you're just not going to get, the returns that you would like given the value that you drafted them at. So starting out with Jose Altuve, and to hit this nail on the head just so that we're all on the same page to start, Zach has an overabundance of second basemen. Between Jose Altuve, Marcus Simeon, Whit Merrifield, and then down here on his injured list, Brandon Lowe has 4 second basemen, and that's good from an asset perspective if you're looking to trade, but bad because if he takes any more injuries, which I couldn't imagine taking any more injuries because he's had some pretty bad luck, he's just not super flexible. So how can we kind of utilize this to our advantage? What's also good about his team is that the players that he does have that I think are most likely movable are big names that have been established in the league for a long time. And so there's a difference between actual value in the present and perceived value given history. And, perceived value given history sometimes can pay benefits because, maybe a guy doesn't have, innings pitched limit. Per se as one example, but it doesn't mean everything. Baseball is one of those evolving things where, if you don't have the latest, greatest thing, it doesn't matter, like, if the player is known to you or not. If they're scoring more points, then that's who you want, sort of thing. So we'll start off with Jose Altuve. Jose is doing super well this year. He's leading off for the Astros still. He's one of their major players. Obviously, this isn't news to anyone. But my thought process is Jose Altuve, given his injury and health history, and the fact that he's just not like stealing as many bases as he usually is, and they're really trying to. I really think they're trying to manage his load moving forward. That this is a player that you absolutely could move for better assets moving forward. So Jose Altuve, also, we love to see that he's almost a double-digit home runs, and he's missed a decent amount of times. He's only had 118 at bats, so he's on pace again to hit almost, let's say 30 home runs this year. But he's also hitting in the leadoff spot. And they seemed like whenever he's healthy, they throw him in the leadoff spot. I've always thought of him as, a 2 or a 3 hitter. And just the fact that the way that the roster is built up, that's just kind of where they have to delegate him because they don't have anyone else to put in that leadoff spot. I think Jose Pena or Jeremy Pena would be a little bit of a better candidate for that position, but that's neither here nor there. So Jose Altuve, though he still has power numbers, he's into his 30s. When he's hitting home runs, he's leading off. He's hitting leadoff home runs. So it's just kind of a waste of value given that there's just usually not going to be people, on base when he comes up. So big name, second base, exclusively not a very flexible player. He's producing, but I don't think that he's anything. He's not going to win you a league per se. So I think that this is someone that you absolutely could move for other assets. And we'll kind of talk about who I think is, maybe. I can't really dive into all the details of all this because it'll end up being a 2-hour video, and I want it to be short. So Jose Altuve looked to pair him with probably one of your injured players and acquiring back, an asset that you need as of right now. Next is Marcus Simeon, and Marcus Simeon is a player that I'd say not to trade right now, only because this is a player that was drafted, probably, in my league it was 30th overall. In your league, he's going to be a top 30 player. He was absolutely incredible last season. Obviously, on a lot better team, a lot better offense, the whole 9 yards, but Marcus Simeon, it just simply hasn't produced to start the year. The fact that he's probably damn near leading the league again in at bats because he always does. He hits leadoff, but in no home runs, given that he almost had 50 this past season, is kind of wild. But given that, he's second base and shortstop eligible. He's your only shortstop on your roster. This is someone I would not get rid of just because he doesn't have the trade value right now. You're just not going to get back the returns that you would want to get back. Whatever you sold him for would be a huge undersell per se. Marcus Simeon, your primary shortstop for right now. And then also Ozzie Albies is your main second baseman. I didn't say him earlier, but you have 5 second basemen, not 4 second basemen. So anyways, Marcus Simeon wouldn't trade overall. Not going to get the return back that you'd like. It's going to be for a discount. That's not what we're looking for. So I would hold on to him and just kind of stick it out because he's worth sticking it out. Next is Whit Merrifield. And I'm glad that I made this video a little later, specifically in Whit's case, just because he has absolutely been on fire recently. And the thing was that I was going to say before was that Whit starts out slow just about every year and picks up kind of same thing with Juan Soto and Trevor Story. He's a player it's all built on contact. He's never going to hit a ton of home runs. Last season, he had only 10 home runs. He stole almost 40 bases. I don't know if he's going to do that this year, but it's just one of those things where he's a super contact dependent guy, and they've also kind of moved him down in the lineup. When he's in a slump, so he might be hitting the leadoff spot now, but is another guy that's going to lead the league just about in at bats when he's hitting leadoff and playing every single day. He really prides himself on playing every single day. He's a little more flexible. He's still one of your second basemen. He has outfield eligibility, which is good. But this is this is really a gut feeling because I'm a big Whit Merrifield supporter. I don't have him in any of my leagues this year. I had him just about every other year. It's just one of those things. Whenever a player hits 33, 34 years old, that's just kind of when I step away and say I'm done with them. Especially position players, just because they're so reliant on those fast twitch muscle fibers that are just a young man's game. I think that this is the absolute best time to trade Whit. And it's frustrating, I'm sure, to hear that because, you weathered the storm of him just being absolutely horrible to start the year. And now finally he's on this huge, crazy hit streak where he is absolutely tearing things up. But I think this is the most you're going to get for him because, again, like that, the Royals start scoring a whole lot of runs. And even then, like their team is so young, their pitching staff is bad. I just feel like, those young guys are not going to have a whole lot to look forward to every day. And I feel like kind of like, puppy dogs sort of thing. You have to keep them. You have to give them a purpose to show up every day and play their fullest. It's just one of those things where I think that if you traded Whit now, you wouldn't regret it. But you can always hold on to him. He's gonna produce. I love Whit. I just don't expect him to hit. As he's going to hit low home runs, and I don't think he's going to steal as many bases this year. And he just doesn't have a whole lot of support behind him to knock him in. Sort of thing. So I think his runs are obviously going to reduce because he's not stealing as many bases. So this one's really up to you. Every decision's up to you, obviously. But Whit's really a toss-up. I go with your gut feeling on that one. JD Martinez every year starts out super hot. And what's great about ESPN is that, you open up JD Martinez and it says position rank, he's number 2. But actuality, he's 13th. So what they'll do is whatever eligibility a player is, they'll take his highest ranking and put him there. So JD Martinez is not only a DH, but he's an outfielder, but he's specifically a right fielder. Or the left fielder, one of the two. I'm probably a left fielder at this point, given that there's just not very many left fielders that are productive. So of the right or left fielders, whichever one he plays, I always thought it was right field. Regardless, he is the second ranked specific left fielder, not outfielder overall, left fielder. So when you see this number 2, it's kind of a BS number, but it works in your favor because someone's going to open up this stat sheet and say, oh, he's ranked 2 overall. He's hitting 380. That's incredible. He's 600 over the last 7 days. But this is what he does every single year, and this is a player who's 34 years old at this point. He explodes for the first month of the season. He tapers off. Every single year, JD does this. And not to say that he's going to necessarily taper off as much as he has in the past, but this is just kind of like how history kind of repeats itself sort of thing. So I think that JD is the absolute highest value that he's going to be over the next month or so. Boston's really on a hot hitting streak per se. They're still not winning a ton, but JD hitting in a good spot on a big market team, big name. I think you would get a lot back for him if you're trying to create a more flexible roster and kind of bolster your pitching and kind of try to fix some of your injury issues. So that's my thoughts. Those are my thoughts on JD Martinez. Nick Pavita, I don't think is necessarily rosterable. All of the Red Sox pitchers throughout the years, like the stereotypical guys like Pavita and Edward Rodriguez, and I just don't think they've never been guys that have excited me per se. He in the past has always had a lot more strikeouts than he has this year, and his ERA is in the 4s. This is just a dude that I'd pass on. And, honestly, I feel like you could probably drop him given that he's only, 45% rostered across leagues. I don't think that anyone's going to necessarily want him as an add-in on a trade. But there are some teams in your league specifically that look like they're an absolute train wreck from a pitching perspective. And I think that, I'll kind of touch on the team that I think you're going to focus on the most. And it's going to be this team Ridge over here, who has every single pitcher on the roster just about has been a free agent pickup, and people that aren't super dependable. He's got a couple of guys in his his wheelhouse here that he's waiting to come back. But if you're trying to trade pitching, Pavita specifically, I think this is about the only team that's going to take him willingly, especially since he's had a hot couple last games. So he's had a hot last month per se. So you might be able to get something out of him, but someone that I don't think is going to be a long-term fix for you. And then you probably know that already. You probably picked him up off the free agent list anyways. If I just show down here, wherever he ended up, this is great content if you have free agent pickup. So next is Gregory Soto. So Gregory Soto is, thankfully has 7 saves on his his resume so far to start the year. But Gregory Soto is not the primary closer. They're closer by committee. Michael Fulmer gets thrown in there sometimes. The other night there was a guy that got his first save of the year, and it wasn't from a a resting Soto perspective. So though he's been fairly consistent over the years, he's got a 2.45 ERA. He is just he's not roster worthy, because if you look at this, these points, innings pitched, 14.2 innings pitched. He's got a good ERA, but he just doesn't have any strikeouts. And the thing is with relief pitchers is you only want relief pitchers that are absolutely blowing people away. There's no excuse to kind of keep middle of the line closers on your roster, just because the overall returns are so low. They have to be explosive, really standalone players at that position, because they only get to go for 1 inning per game. And if the bonus is only 5 points for a save, they really have to make those 3 outs count, or else it's only going to be around 5 or 6 points per outing, 4 points per outing. If you look at Mark Melanson, he has double-digit saves, and I think he only has 27 points on the whole year. So this is a player, again, he has a good ERA. He's playing on one of the worst teams in baseball. I thought they were going to be a lot better this year. They're just so young, but they've scored the least amount of runs in all of baseball this year. I just think this is a guy that you could probably drop and or just try to trade if you're going to get a relief pitcher from another roster that maybe has an abundance. So Gregory Soto, you feel like you can move away from. Joe Barlow. He's a good player, but kind of the same thing. He's got a really low ERA. His K per 9 ratio is just over what you want if he was a starting pitcher. But for these relief pitchers, if I had a pitcher that's he's gone 15 innings, I'm looking for almost 25 plus strikeouts for me to really make that make sense. And it seems like he's fairly efficient, but again, it's just 5.8 points per however many times he gets thrown out there. If you look back here, there's 9 days in between closing opportunities, because the Texas Rangers just don't score any runs. They're just a bad baseball team. So I think the Joe Barlow you could also separate from, especially given that he's 38.2% owned. He is the closer, and no one's competing with him for that role. It's just that he's not going to get a lot of save opportunities because they're just not a good team. So I think this is another player that you could separate from, and it's not going to affect you. Kenley Jansen. So if you look at Kenley Jansen, 18 innings pitched, 25 strikeouts, 3.86 ERA. Lately, he's been getting smacked for the last 3 outings that he's gone out. He's given up 4 earned runs. I've been watching him as much as I can because, again, I've got baseball on behind me, or at least I had it before it froze. I've got baseball on my other monitor screen here. Watching Kenley, it's just one of those things where it's he's not a young player. He's been around forever. He seems like he's kind of a last second pick up by a World Series team to bolster, but I don't think he's as elite and dominant as he used to be. And even when he used to be, he's just an injury risk. So I think that this is absolutely the highest value that Kenley Jansen's going to have. And I think if you were going to trade anyone, I think it would be him. And you might be shrugging your shoulders well, he's my only really dependable closer now that Chapman's on the IL, but even Chapman's not a guy that I trust. Really, with relief pitchers, I'm trying to get the most dependable guys at that position to get a lot of strikeouts, low ERA, so yada yada. So I would try my absolute best. You might have to give up a lot. You might have to give up that much because, again, he's an older name. He's a big name on a big team, good team. I think you could pull a Josh Hader or a Liam Hendricks or Jordan Romano, out of like for him. And I wouldn't trade him for Jordan Romano specifically because, yeah, he's just a strength lower, even though he's a really productive guy. If you trade him for Jordan Romano, you would want excess players back. It wouldn't be necessarily a two for one. It would be a Kenley Jansen, you get Romano back plus another player, and you include one, whatever, however it makes sense. But I would go after Josh Hader or Liam Hendricks super hard and just know that you have a shot at getting them. It's just a matter of really contacting these people and making the most of that interaction. So Kenley Jansen, I think, is as highest value. I don't think he's going to necessarily even like finish in the top 10 at his position just because he gets hurt. And, the second that he gets hurt, there's so many electric arms in that Braves bullpen that I think he could easily get replaced per se. So, going to end on Kenley Jansen, but I think that he's very tradable, and that's what you should probably do. But again, at the end of the day, it's your decision. Trevor Rogers is also on your roster as one of your starting pitchers. I'm a big Trevor Rogers believer. I had him this past season. He had a 2.45 ERA with almost 20, 30 strikeouts more than he had innings pitched. Really, really solid player. It's just he's having a slow start, and he's super young. I think he's 23 years old. This is a guy that I wouldn't drop and get rid of because you're not going to get the returns on him that you wanted to. And again, this is a player that I think has a lot of potential. He's just figuring things out, and he hasn't gotten a ton of run support either. The strikeouts aren't as prevalent as they were last year, but that seems to happen in the second year with pitchers. You just get that much extra time to study film and run the data analytics on all these guys, and you start to kind of figuring out. Even like the hitters do as much studying as the pitching staff, and the operational teams, the operational upper management does on these players. So the second year, a lot of times you'll see a slump, especially for a pitcher, and you even saw that with Freddie Peralta. So it's pretty common. But I wouldn't give up on him only because, he's gonna eventually get a hold of himself and figure it out, and then you're just gonna be sad because he sold him super low when his value is actually here. So big Trevor Rogers believer. It's just these young guys, 22 years old, 23 years old, it just takes a little while for them to figure things out. Because what was I doing at 22, 23 years old? Still playing sports, but it just takes some time to figure things out. And then next we go over to your IL situation, and man, you just had some bad luck, and I don't have to be the one to tell you that. This is unordinary for how many injuries you had pile up all in the same time, and injuries of guys you can't really drop. So what I would do, and you might have some frowns here, but I really think that you're going to be better off for this, is Brandon Lowe is supposed to he actually had a little bit of a setback, and he's not going to be able to play for another 3 weeks. He's got that second base eligibility. You have a ton of second basemen. I would package him with one of your your healthy guys, one of these guys over here, and I would trade him in a package deal for a better player, 2 for 1, coming back. So that would be my recommendation for Brandon Lowe. He's always going to hit probably in the 230s, 250s, but the fact that he hit 40 home runs last year on a really, really good Rays team continuously. Whenever he's healthy, he's going to be at the top of the lineup. And he's not necessarily an older guy either. He's 27, 28 years old. But in this time being, you just can't really afford to have these IL guys taking up your bench slots. That's just look at the averages. Every IL guy that you have on your bench that's not actively playing is just a dead zero every day, and that's it's just not going to equate to wins. If you had a better record, you might be able to get away with kind of sitting on some of these guys. But the fact that you're 2 and 4, I would really consider trying to ship these guys, because again, they're not coming back soon. Brandon Lowe's not going to be able to play at least for 30, for 3 weeks. So this is someone that I absolutely would try to package and send away. Fernando Tatis Jr., I wouldn't. He's going to take up one of your IL slots. This is a player that you can't get rid of. He hurt his wrist He's still not throwing. He's still a long ways away. It's just one of those things that like that player gets hot. He contributes in every single category. He's number one, pick in baseball for a reason, sort of thing. So Tatis is going to take up one of your IL slots, and that's fine. Leave him there, and especially because you only have one shortstop on your entire roster. He's going to become even more valuable because again that roster eligibility, and he might actually be able to come back here within the next couple of weeks. They said that he's been progressing quicker than they expected, but that's what people do at 23 years old. They're super resilient. So hold on to Tatis. You probably expected to hear that, but he's going to return quicker than expected. So Tatis, hold on to. Chapman, I would trade. I don't draft him ever since he's been a Red. It just seems like he gets hurt and he gets real streaky. He does his job. He'll go out and he'll strike out 3 batters and 9 pitches. One outing, and then he'll have 3 outings where he just gets absolutely blown up. It's just one of those guys that he's just been losing a lot every year. It seems like, when you look at his innings pitched, 14 innings, 6 runs and 15 strikeouts only. This is a player that had the highest K per 9 ratio of anyone in MLB history throughout the beginning of his career. He's just got a lot of miles on his on his arm, and that's fine. But that's good because again, he has a big name. He's on a huge team. He's temporarily hurt. He's going to come back not too long from now. But again, you need these players to be producing. I don't think that he's going to even outperform like a Danny Jimenez to start to the rest of the year, just because again that Yankee bullpen is very, very good, and there's so many options that they can turn to, opposed to some of these other these teams that are like their closer that's locked in is the main guy. They can't turn to anyone else. He has a lot more leeway, whereas Chapman, when he comes back, he's earning a lot of money, but there's so many good pitchers in that bullpen, and the Yankees are win now roster. And I think that they can turn away from him. And I think that they're, even before Chapman got hurt, there's been like 5 players that have gotten saves for the Yankees. So Chapman, I would trade. Big name, just not a player that I want on my roster regardless, but you can get something out of him. So I look at a package Chapman, send him away to a team that doesn't have anybody in their IL slot, maybe not any relief pitching depth. Next, Freddie Peralta. I know this is your namesake, but Freddie Peralta, the way that they've talked about it, they think the last I heard is he may be able to pitch this season. They expect him to maybe be able to pitch, even after the All-Star break. So, with his injury, it's just one of those things that seems so scary that I just wouldn't F around with him. I would trade him as soon as possible, try to get something out of him. If, these, this team, over to your left that has absolutely this team range, and I can't go through all your teams, I don't have much time, but these pitchers, like this teams that have majority free agent pitchers like this, they're desperate. They're going to give you more than Freddie Peralta is actually worth, just because they're so desperate for a roster guy like this. So I would try to trade Freddie Peralta as soon as possible, and free up one of those IL slots. And Lance Lynn is expected to start, throwing rehab assignments. Yeah, this has been one of the more consistent, pitchers in all of baseball over the last couple of years, especially playing for the White Sox. He's always really productive. He's really reliable. And I think that's kind of the key word, is reliable. Him and his belly trotting out there, is just always seems like, he's in the right place at the right time. And it's a knee issue. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure being thrown, whether you're planting on that knee or you're exploding off of that knee. There's a lot of pressure that goes onto that. Obviously, it's a dynamic, joint that you need to be able to use, but it's not a shoulder, it's not a forearm, it's not a wrist, it's not an elbow. I think that he's going to come back super strong and be just as fine as he usually is. Even before he got hurt, I didn't expect him to be as productive necessarily as he was last year and the year before, just because he's getting older. But some of these pitchers that just haven't figured out, they go into their mid to late 30s. You're benefiting from a Justin Verlander right now. he seems like he's one of those guys that just kind of hasn't figured out. So it's a knee issue, not an arm, not a shoulder issue. So I think that like he's you obviously hold on to him. He's going to become one of your one of your main guys that you rely upon. So of these IL guys that you want your IL to be only these three players. You want it to be Tatis. You want it to be Lynn. He's going to come off fairly soon. And for now, you slot in Brandon Lowe, but possibly trade him if you can. And then going down, kind of just talking about those weaknesses you have in your roster. You have so many second basemen. You don't have any shortstops. I think you only have one third baseman. Third base and shortstop should be your focus point. Your pitchers are going to fill in. Your pitchers are going to to turn around perspective, kind of thing. Especially after you trade the ones that I don't necessarily think are the answer. So the pitchers that I would specifically go after are the ones that are like making the most of their starts, and it's easy to just kind of look at the average kind of points per outing. But the guys I think that are worth the most for your buck are obviously Josh Hader, and I would give up a lot for Josh Hader if you can. If you can pull him away, sending that you're going to want to send Jansen plus for like maybe an IL guy for Hader. He's just the most reliable guy, probably in all of baseball. Look at the difference in strikeouts. Like he's only got 14 innings pitched. He's one less strikeout than Taylor Rogers, and he's pitched 5 less innings. So it's just someone that you get the absolute most out of that player. And again, like I've talked about in other episodes, Josh Hader, whenever he does go into play a ball game, it's going to be a close game because their offense is just not very good, and they're playing teams that aren't very good. So he's going to get plenty of opportunities. He's the best player at that position. I would go after him. Next is Liam Hendricks, and I really think like Liam Hendricks has lost a little bit off his step, and I don't know if he was worth my second overall or my third overall pick in all of my drafts this year. But Hader was gone, and it's just one of those things where the White Sox were supposed to score more runs. They've had some injuries too, but he's figuring things out, and he's one of those guys who's like played in California his whole career, and now he goes to Chicago, and for the first month, it was cold, just being weird about stuff, getting hit more than he should, sort of thing. But he's starting to figure things out. But the thing is with like Tony La Russa running the White Sox is that he just throws out Liam Hendricks, no matter the situation. He'll throw him out there for 2 innings. I think he leads the league in 2 inning saves over the last couple of years by a lot. This is a guy that I trust my life with, essentially, if I need to get 3 outs. So Liam Hendricks is a guy that I absolutely would go after too, and it's especially helpful because he's got 31 strikeouts over 20 innings pitched. That's exactly what you're looking for. It's one of those things that he's had a couple losses, and that's good because again he underperformed to start the year. It's cold in Chicago. He's undervalued right now, but this is a guy that absolutely you should go after. He is extremely valuable, and you might be able to get him for a discount. So go after Liam Hendricks as well if you can't get a hold of Josh Hader, but you got to start sending out text messages, start communicating with these these people in your league. And the next, Jordan Romano. It's gonna be hard, I think, to get Jordan Romano away from somebody just because they drafted him super low probably, and they've just he's just been awesome. But again, this is a player that I would go after, that I would trust with that I trust a lot. So this is the third basically closer that I think the world of, and go with that. So I would focus on specifically trying to get closers, for your excess players, and things are going to work out. And I don't know how you acquired both Matt Olson and freaking Nolan Arenado for free agency, but like you've been a trade machine. It looks like you have every ability to move these parts around as you see fit. So it's good that there is a good fluidity around your league, and that's good, because the second that any league that isn't willing to talk about trade, like there's just no communication. Fantasy baseball just gets hard because you can't really make the most of your opportunities, as whether you're down or you're on top. whatever. So that's basically the show. And, I talked a lot over this period. So what I did was I got your roster, took pictures of it. And I kind of took notes about all the guys. And this is kind of your old roster. So I got to add a couple of new notes. But essentially, I'm going to share this link with you, so that you can, read my notes essentially, and not have to just rewatch the video sort of thing. So I'll make sure to share the link with you, and thanks. But overall, I mean, a big thank you for, for supporting me. The amount of just nice things that everybody says to me, after these videos and how much they help. It's just a big, it's a big, it's a big lift. I just feel like I spend so much time trying to, trying to adapt to something I'm not. I work at a major hospital system, and I'm this big goofy guy who's walking around, and just everybody that I meet, it seems like they're so much more serious than me. And I feel like this is a place that, I can be goofy and be really good at my job, which is telling you guys, advice sort of thing. So it's just a good thing that's in my life, and I really appreciate everyone's positivity. So, Zach, I wish you the best of luck, man. I'm sorry I didn't get to this as sooner than I did. I had some sickness, some health issues, and life's been kind of wild. But I'm glad that you finished up finals, and hope that all went well and such. But I think that's about the end of the episode. I'll make sure again to share this link with you, and move on from there. But again, thank you for your time, guys. And final reminder: if you guys want to be good at fantasy baseball, watch baseball all the time. Watch it all the time. And if you don't have time to watch it, then I guess that's my job, and that's why you you like and subscribe. I don't give a shit if you subscribe to me. The second that I do get enough followers to start monetizing things, my plan is to start giving it back to you guys, kind of like in raffles, just to kind of keep the engagement going. And if I can get paid to just do this thing that I think is fun, that's the overall dream, but it's not the expectation. So follow me if you think that the information is very valuable. But if not, that's fine too. I'm just here for all the fun. So again, appreciate all your time, guys. This is the end of my show. Good night. Bye.